Welcome to the Making of a Nation, American History in VOA Special English. I'm Shelley Griffith. I'm Steve Amber. Today history repeats itself. We start our series over again. The last time we were at the beginning was in February of 2003. The Making of a Nation has a loyal following. In fact, listener research find it the most popular weekly program in VOA in Special English. It started in May of 1969. Some people can remember when the Making of a Nation was on the radio 2 times a week. People who grew up listening to it are old enough now to listen with their own children or even their grandchildren. The series tells a story. You can think of it not just as a series of programs about the history of America and its people, but a series of lessons. The subject include exploration, revolution, civil war, social and political change, the rise of industry and modern technology, and more. We ended last week at program number 238. The subject was presidential election of 2004. As time adds to the story, we add new program to the series. In a sense, the Making of a Nation is a living history. Yet, some of the announcers are no longer even alive after all these years. Here and there, though the language may sound a little dated. For example, some of the program call back people Negroes. The use of that term may be historically correct, but today the social accepting is African American. Technology has also changed. Today, the Making of a Nation is not just on radio, but also on the internet. At voaspecialenglish.com, you can download MP3 file and transcripts. That way you can listen anytime or any place and read along. The site also includes archive in case you ever miss the program. So, how was the nation made? Why did loyal citizens rebel against one nation and start their own with different laws? The Making of a Nation answers these and other questions about American history. We tell the story of how a group of farmers, businessmen, and lawyers wrote a document they call the Constitution of the United States. On September 17, 1787, delegates to the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia met on last time to sign in. We explain why that document is extremely important today, and not just to American. Other government has used it as a guide to creating a modern democracy. We explore why the writer of the Constitution include guarantee of freedom of speech and religion, and the right to a fair and public trial. We also talk about the reason of the American Revolution. One of the most important was the idea that citizens of a country should have a voice in its decision. British citizens in the American colony paid tax, but had no representative in the British Parliament. Taxation without representation led to growing anger in the American colonies. The leader of the revolt made important changes. They decided that any free citizen could be a candidate for public office, and they make sure that all free men who own land and paid tax were permitted to vote. Not until 1920 did the Constitution give women the right to vote. Later, another change lowered the voting age of Americans from 21 to 18. Our program explained the thinking behind these and other rights. They also tell the story of each presidential election and presidency in American history. The Making of a Nation explores the good and the bad in American history. For example, how could slavery exist in a nation whose people declare that all men are created equal and with a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Many programs tell about the ideas and issues that have shaped the United States, but most importantly, they tell about the people. For example, George Washington was a farmer. Before he became a military commander, he became president because the citizens of the new country wanted him as their first leader. After 2 terms, he gave up power by his own choice. He once again became a farmer and a private citizen. In this farewell address in 1796, he warned an American about the danger of political parties. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence. It told the world that the people of this new country would no longer answer to the European ruler. Some of the people who formed the United States into a nation during the 1700s were well educated and wealthy. Abraham Lincoln was not. Still, he grew up to become president. Abraham Lincoln became president during the 1860s. When several southern states decided they no longer wanted to be part of the United States, we tell how President Lincoln dealt with the terrible Civil War that almost split the country apart. One of our programs dealt with a speech he gave in the little town of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. A great battle had been fought there. President Lincoln had made us to come to Gettysburg to say a few words at the dedication of a military burial place. The speech was short. President Lincoln honored the young men who have died on that bloody battlefield. He also told the world why the terrible war was being fought and why it was so important. 47 years ago, our father broke forth on this continent a new nation, convinced in liberty, and decided to the proposition that all men are created equal. Those words were just the first sentence. After President Lincoln wrote the speech, he felt sad. He considered it a failure. In fact, his words earned the respect of history. You can hear the full Gettysburg address in our program about the life and presidency of Abraham Lincoln. The Making of a Nation touched on many different subjects. One of them is social change. For example, we tell about the changes that took place in the 1920s, known as the Roaring Twenties. Many young people decide they no longer need to follow the conservative tradition of their parents and grandparents. This way, the age of jazz. But music and social value were not the only things changing. The Roaring Twenties were also a time of fast-moving economic change. Productivity grew sharply. At the same time, the divide between rich and poor Americans grew wider. By the end of the roaring 20s, the economy was ready to collapse. Then, in October of 1929, the stock market crashed. What followed was an economic disaster worse than any the modern world has ever known. We examine the cause of the Great Depression and how it affected America and the rest of the world. We tell the story of people who lost their jobs, their homes, and their hope for the future. Franklin Roosevelt was elected with a promise to bring the country out of the Depression. On March 4, 1933, he was inaugurated to his first or fourth term. He served longer than any other president in American history. We discuss Roosevelt's New Deal program and his leadership during World War II. But not all of the subjects on the making of a nation are so serious. We also look at the history of American popular culture and subjects like the rise of high technology, something for everyone. Today, news is not only tomorrow history. It will also become part of the making of a nation. But for now, we start again from the beginning. I'm Shelley and I'm Steve. Join us at this time next week and every week as we go back in time. Listen on radio or online at voaspecialenglish.com as we bring you the making of a nation in VOA Special English.